Hey y'all, what's up? It is your girl Michelle Pierre, and I am here again for another podcast with another phenomenal person. And today we have the pleasure of hearing from Miss Marquese Lewis, the creator of Adultology. Marquese, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes, of course. I had to get you on here, especially after we talked about adultology and just knowing some of the classes that are in there. So I think this is something that many people, including myself, we all need to hear about. So without further ado, why don't you give us a little background about yourself?
Yes, of course, of course. So, I am, well, as you know, I was in the military and also went to West Point. And I also went to the Wharton Business School and got my MBA in Wharton Business School. I currently work for the federal government. I work at the Pentagon as a business manager. Prior to that, I was doing communications. That was my main source of operation or source of employment. And since then, I've been in business operations and performance management. And it was a very interesting transition because it wasn't your normal transition. It was something that, through relationships, you build relationships. And people are like, hey, maybe you can come and help me with this, with business processes since you're doing that over there. So it was interesting being able to get into this position.
That is awesome. So you said you went to the academy, you were in the federal government, now you're a businessman, and also you have a background in communication. Okay,
Yes,
so
yes, yes.
so so tell us, how do all of those things kind of fit together to you? Like, how did you find yourself within those spaces?
What's funny is I kind of went through different iterations of who I am or who I was at those points in life. And I made a Facebook post a while back saying, "Where were you when you found yourself?" And it was almost facetious in a way because I still feel like I'm finding myself. Like every couple of years, I discover something new about myself, something that I want to explore. And that was something that with adultology, it actually had been on my heart for probably a decade, to be totally honest with you. In some capacity, it was always some kind of passion of mine because of some of the difficulties that I went through trying to learn about being an adult. I mean, then people kind of take for granted or they automatically assume that you go to the best colleges, you go to you're employed by some of the top employers, you obviously have it all together. Well, that's not necessarily true. We don't always have it together, and sometimes it takes going through different paths or hitting that fork in the road and going left and then deciding, no, you know what, I want to go right now. And realizing that that's okay. And so that is kind of where I went when I went into the Army. Before I went to West Point, I actually wanted to be a videographer, and so I went into it with a job in combat documentation as a combat documentation specialist. And ironically, and of course I got that MOS, but they actually stationed me somewhere where I had to be a photographer. I was so disappointed, but because I wanted to do videos, right? Of course, I wanted to be a film person, but I realized it was such a wonderful job. I ended up loving it. And I thought I was going to explore that a little bit more, maybe journalism or just stay in kind of the communication field. And West Point, as you know, has nothing like that. So after I left West Point, got out of the Army and everything, I explored in communications again in the form of public affairs, and it allowed me to show that creative side of myself. But public affairs is a whole different animal in terms of like dealing with the media, and it wasn't as fun as being a photographer was. And so I did internal communications. Again, it was something that I felt like I could only go so far. And so when opportunities presented themselves, I started learning about different avenues, like within that same occupation or within the same, the same place place of employment that I was in, and I started finding ways that I could excel and move up in different areas outside of, the communications field, which I didn't feel like was actually going to grow as much as I would have liked. Um, and that was the thing that really kind of was a turning point for me, because I felt like at one time I felt like you had to get into a certain field and stay in that field for 20 years and be in that, have that mindset and just grow in that field for 20 years or until retirement. And I think that's something that a lot of people do. They feel like it has to be this all or nothing, and it's not. You can start over, and you don't necessarily have to start from the bottom to start over. You can go, you can become, you can do something adjacent. You can do something, that's do something simultaneously while you're learning something else. Like there's so many different ways that you can go about growing in your career or in your field or in other fields. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't realize.
That's a good nugget. But one thing that I do want to clarify, even though you can start over, you can change fields, what you're not saying is to jump from job to job to job.
Absolutely not. No. Like in each of these jobs, I was in probably like 4 years, and then they were still with the same employer. So even though I've been in different areas of of employment, I've had the same employer the whole time. So it's just like, okay, now I can move up and then move in, in this area. And that happens a lot when you make relationships. And relationships, mentorship, and just having those connections with coworkers, and people even just adjacent to your, to your division or to your area. It's important to establish those relationships, because that's where you ended up moving up, and you just build with other people, and then they start seeing your expertise and seeing that you're good at different things, and saying, you know what, I might need to steal this person over here, but it's still in the same business, but you just you get to move up in different ways.
I like that. So and that's a perfect segue, right? Because you're talking about exploring. You're talking about growing within your own self, right? And adulting. That's what you're talking about. And
exactly.
So why don't you take us into adultology, and really tell us, you already hit on kind of where it was birthed from, but what is it and what can people expect if they sign up for your program?
And and I'll actually go back a little and say where it was birthed from a little bit more. So for me, growing up, I grew up very poor. I didn't have a lot of influences. I was the first person to graduate college, or even like really attend college in my family. So everything was kind of new to me. And it wasn't just new to me, it was new to my family. And it was hard getting the assistance that I needed or would have needed at that time, because they hadn't gone through those experiences. So I had to learn a lot of things on my own. And in some ways, I was very lucky going into the military and being around other people that were older and, could offer some insight. But I still had to learn a whole lot of things on my own. I took to reading books, trying to learn how to invest, trying to learn all of these different tasks that really I probably should have been taught, at home. But because, if you are not from a family that is well off, financially, or that has invested, they can't teach you about investing. If they've never bought a house, they can't teach you about buying a house. If they've never gone to college, they can't teach you about going to college. And because of that, because of me, not just because of me learning about it on my own, but seeing that so many other people are going through that, it's easy for us to say, oh, it's the parents' responsibility. The parents need to teach their children. But if the parents don't know, are we just going to leave these kids out to suffer? And to be totally honest with you, it's not just the kids, it's people in their 30s and 40s, and they're just figuring out, oh crap, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know I could put money away now and then end up as a millionaire, when I'm 65 by letting compound interest do its, job. I didn't know I was messing up my credit when I did X, Y, and Z. I didn't, so it's a lot of things that out there that we take for granted, and we are a little bit in some ways privileged, some of us, because we have learned certain things, and so we take it for granted that we know these things, and we don't impart it on the next generation, or we assume that the other generations or other parents or other kids know the same things that we do, or know the same things that we are teaching our kids, and that's not necessarily true. And so when I sought to I sought to really correct this, mainly for people that were like me, that really didn't have that insight or have someone helping and teaching and any of those things like I would have needed at the time that I was growing up. But what I found in developing it is that a lot more older people that you automatically kind of think have it together, they've done this, they've gone to all the best schools, they're living a great life, it seems, but you'll have this one person that is 40 and doesn't know how to cook, or they don't know how the right clothes to wear, and I have friends, and it's nothing, please don't take this offensively, because I love you guys, I love my military people, but my military friends have not been out in the real world and had to write a resume or had to dress in a professional way, because you guys wear the uniform. So you don't have to dress in a professional way to go to certain things because you already have a uniform. So you're like, okay, what things do I need to choose? And I find that a lot of people are having to learn things that we make the automatic assumption that, they know this because they're such and such age. Well, they have been in a different environment and living in a different way that doesn't expose them to certain things, or they didn't have to know these things. And so we have to really understand that people grow up in different ways. We are given different experiences, and regardless of our age, we all kind of need a little help, and what I found, I don't know if you had a chance to take the quiz, but I have a quiz on my homepage at www.adultology.io, and adultology is spelled ADULTOLOGY. And on that quiz, very few adults actually pass the quiz. Not even like, and I mean, I say I want them to pass with a 70%, but few even get a 50% at adulting. And so that lets you know that a lot of people really don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Like, we don't know some of the health things that we are supposed to be doing or that we should know. There's a lot that we kind of take for granted. And so I developed these courses, and right now I have 10 courses with plans to develop even more. But I have financial planning and investing, career management, home buying and maintenance. That also includes apartments, car buying and maintenance, clothing, and this is like how you wash your clothing, how what type of clothing you should be buying for certain things, health management. Gosh, I'm losing my train of thought. I do. I have a lot of cooking and grocery shopping, which is one that a lot of people tend to love, the cooking and grocery shopping. Politics and voting. I think I've mentioned clothing already. Relationships, and my favorite one, actually, self-awareness. That is one I always recommend everyone starts with, because you will be surprised at things that you learn about yourself just by doing this self-awareness course and doing some shadow work and finding out about those hidden things that we tend to be embarrassed about. We don't want other people to know, but you have to kind of face it for yourself and come to that realization that you're dealing with those things. So those are my 10 courses, and they're very reasonably priced, and I promise anybody that takes them or has taken them so far has learned a tremendous amount. We also have an adulting guide, which is actually free, also available on the homepage. So you can check out the adulting guide, and you can check out that quiz, and email me and let me know what you get on the quiz.
So it doesn't matter if you are a college student or if you are in your 30s, 40s, there is something that you can learn from the courses that you're offering.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's something that everybody can learn. But you'd be surprised, like some of the things that you can learn just by taking time to really, go through it. So, yeah,
very
absolutely.
good. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that with us. And I guess my last request is, what would you tell a young person who may want to get into this line of work of doing, creating courses, as well as just inspiration about them finding themselves in a world that at times likes to tell us who we should be?
Okay, so I'll tackle the second question first, because in the career course, in fact, and I'm gonna go ahead and give you this tidbit. I actually take you through a process where you identify your passions, you identify like the things that you're good at, what you're passionate about, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. And so, whatever you decide to do should intersect in those four areas, because if you don't, you'll end up with something that's a vocation but that you're not really passionate about, or you'll end up doing something that doesn't pay well, like maybe you like it but it doesn't pay well, and you don't want to be in any of those situations. You want to be in the intersection where all of those things fit together. And so I help you to identify that. But even if you don't take my course, it's always important to go ahead and identify those aspects of yourself and say, what are the things that can fit here, where I can get paid for something that I absolutely love. What's the thing that I love? And it might be something like, okay, I like doing stuff with my hands. I'm very good at doing things with my hands. I like doing things with my hands, and I like math. Well, you know what? You can actually get paid and become an engineer. So that kind of helps you to identify where you can kind of lead to the type of career that you would be good at. And so it's important to identify those things, that not just what would make money, because you can go make money and be completely miserable, and it's not really worth it to be in that place. The other thing I would say for the first question is, you have to, again, find what you love, but you have to also not be afraid to change and try something new if things present themselves. The world is changing drastically. It's always changing. We're always having new opportunities. There's technological advances, and you have to be able to advance with the times. And that's something that I decided to do. There was nothing special about what I did that would cause me to be like this, in the perfect position to be that person. I was in the right place at the right time with the right skills. And a lot of times it really just comes down to that. Being the right person in the right place at the right time with the right skills can lead you to opportunities that will help you to elevate to where you're really trying to go. And it really helped a great deal when opportunities started to open up, that they could present themselves to me, and I'm like, okay, how can I pivot to get into this opportunity, to get that promotion, to get into that field, to make myself more accessible for that. And I look for those opportunities. I developed those relationships. I continue to grow with, what was being presented to me. And I showed that I could actually do the work. And in my case, I was able to do details, like this thing called details in the government, where you can go and work at someone else's location for a little while, like maybe a couple months, and then you go back to your own, prior location. Well, I did 2 different details, and they both were like, okay, we want to keep you. So, and that was over a period of maybe 8 years or something, like where I did 2 different details, and that led me to a new job, being able to try it out. And then they say, okay, you're actually really good at that, or you could be a real benefit, because we actually need a person. If you are interested, we're putting this job out here. I'm letting you know about it. Hint, hint,
Right.
And you get that little wink, and then they let you know about it and tell you, hey, we want you here, So being ready, always be open to new ideas, and being open to trying new things and taking on new responsibilities and new knowledge, being able to adjust as times adjust. That's going to be the most important asset you can have for yourself.
Being able to adjust as time adjusts.
Yeah.
That's good wisdom. So, Marquese, this has been a wonderful, wonderful podcast. Thank you for sharing with us your program.
Thank
Hopefully,
you.
folks out there will write down the address and get on there and take the survey, and um, and they'll just learn, right? Because that's what this
Yes,
program is
yes.
about. It's about learning and growing and becoming more comfortable within this space of adulting. That, oh,
Hmm.
by the way, none of us have it all together. So
Right,
thank
right,
you for taking the
exactly.
time and the effort for putting it together and helping us out that's out there
Yeah.
floundering. So we
Yes,
definitely
yes, yes.
appreciate it. All
Well,
right.
thank you. And once again, that address is www.adultology.io. Okay?
You heard
So
it
thank you
here.
so much.
Of course. Well, hey, this has been Black Voices Podcast, brought to you by Espresso Unicorn. And I am that voice, Michelle Pierre. We hope you have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.